Australia, tapi juga editor, tapi juga Mahasiswa di Indonesia.
Selamat sore, saya Darlene, saya penulis dari Australia. Buku pertama saya diterbit tahun lalu, dan itu tentang konflik di antara masyarakat kecil di Sumatera Selatan dan salah satu bule yang punya surf resort di Sumatera Selatan juga. Jadi saya menulis buku ini waktu tinggal di Jawa dan dibantu oleh guru-guru di Universitas Islam Bandung dan Universitas Pajajaran. Walaupun hati saya masih di sini, di Indonesia, sekarang saya tinggal di Australia lagi di desa terpencil sekali,
Australia and Indonesia. Maybe it's nice just for us each to touch briefly on our own personal connection to Indonesia or between the two countries.
As by in English first, she says about living in Indonesia. She says, I'm more open here. I laugh more. I feel more dangerously, boldly alive. So in Indonesia ini berarti ini cewek Australia. Di Indonesia dia terbuka, dia tertawa, dia merasa kayak dia berhidup dengan cara yang lebih berani dan lebih berbahaya daripada di Australia. So maksud saya juga merasa kayak ini. Waktu saya di Indonesia, kalau ke pasar, tidak bisa menyembunyikan diri. Selalu orang bertanya, Mrs. mau kemana? Beli apa? Di mana suami? Sudah mandi? Jadi selalu itu terbuka di sini. Dan buat saya yang paling tertarik di Indonesia adalah orang. Dan orang di sini sangat hangat, sangat ramah. Nah, saya sering balik lagi ke Indonesia karena itu.
Citizenship, warga negaranya Kanada, nggak pernah Indonesia. Tapi karena misalnya di Indonesia, meskipun sekolahnya bukan sekolah Indonesia, tapi selalu merasa balik lagi ke Indonesia. Dan sekarang lagi dalam proses kalau bisa mungkin mendapatkan warga negara Indonesia. Tapi masih kalian dulu nanti. Sure. So my name is Danau. In Indonesian, Danau means lake. So I can't. But in Indonesia, it's not a name. So even Indonesians go, "Where's she from?" Is that her real name? Right. But so my dad is Indonesian, Chinese background. My mom is Japanese. So I was born in Canada. We're in Daegu, Ontario. But I grew up mostly in Indonesia, going to an international school. And I've left Indonesia for a long time. Come back. Lived in Australia for about 15 years, but I keep coming back. My family's still here, and so even though I don't have nationality, I'm always like, when I go overseas, I'm like, yeah, I'm Indonesian, and I've always wanted to vote. And I feel bad at the press when I come out, but I vote with my heart.
These days, perhaps. So I studied Indonesian and I studied politics and history, and I guess that's just where my interest and curiosity in Indonesia was born and has continued until now. I'm still on the journey of learning. Jadi hubungan saya dengan Indonesia mulai di universitas, di mana saya belajar bahasa Indonesia dan politik dan sejarah, dan sampai sekarang saya masih belajar dan menyelidiki Indonesia selalu.
Saya akan kembali ke sini dan alasan pertama sekarang ini memang pekerjaan saya meneliti dan dulu pada penelitian saya mengenai orang Indonesia yang melarikan diri ke luar negeri. Sejak beberapa tahun belakangan ini saya lebih tertarik pada orang luar yang datang ke Indonesia mencari perlindungan. So I came to Indonesia first in 1995 as an exchange student, and ever since I've been looking for possibilities to basically come back. And the main reason now is my work. I'm a researcher, and part of my initial research was about Indonesians who were forced to leave their country for political reasons. And for the last 6 years, I've been looking at persecuted people who come to Indonesia to look for protection.
Spent time in Bali at 15. And like her other friends who spend time abroad at this stage, somehow it ties them to their country of exchange. What do you think it is about that age that can have an effect For myself, I also spent time in Indonesia when I was a teenager, and somehow it had a big impact on my decisions in life. And sometimes I wonder if I'd gone to Italy, whether I'd become an Italian chef, or whether there was something unique about Indonesia that kept me going in that direction. So, dalam bahasa Indonesia sedikit, orang pertama di buku Tropo mempunyai pengalaman waktu dia masih remaja di Indonesia, dan itu mempunyai dampak agak besar untuk kehidupan. Apa tentang umur 15, kira-kira tahun 15 yang khusus yang mempunyai mengakibatkan dampak agak besar untuk Madeline?
Saya belajar bahasa Indonesia di Denpasar. Tidak lama kemudian bom itu diledakan di Kuta, dan saya punya teman cewek umurnya mungkin 15 tahun dan dia meninggal di bom itu. Jadi saya berpikir, sesudah saat itu, saya bertanya kenapa ini terjadi. Saya menjadi sadar bahwa hubungan di antara negara kita sangat-sangat kompleks. Jadi ya, saya berpikir sesudah itu saya mau cari jawaban untuk pertanyaan ini, kenapa ini terjadi kalau hubungan sangat bagus in the day-to-day life. So in English, for me, my connection with Indonesia started probably as a 10-year-old. I traveled to Bali with my family, and following that, I decided to study Indonesian at high school. That led to a high school trip when I was 16 to Denpasar, and not long after that trip, when I was 16, the Bali bombings happened, and one of my friends died in the bomb at the Sari Pub. And I guess from that moment, I became aware that the relationship politically between Australia and Indonesia is really complex, and it's not always about positive things. We have some pretty heavy history, sejarah yang berat di antara negara kita. So in a sense, I was really hoping to explore and understand that. You might have Choco already knows really.
School director. Thank you for joining our panel, who is also one of the authors of this book. So it's great.
And translator.
Oh, sorry, yeah, of course, and most importantly, the translator. So, Dr. Lily, yang pasti semua sudah kenal, yang juga penulis dalam buku ini dan menerjemahkan buku yang baru bisa dibaca dalam bahasa Indonesia. The mixed marriages and how sometimes they're overlooked by government programs that promote people-to-people links. I'm interested in some of the stories from your research of children from mixed marriages, and also some of the youth exchange programs you do discuss in your chapter, like AYA or AYA.
So I'll talk more broadly about it because the chapter, the data is actually taken from my co-author, Kelly Marita. But yeah, what we were trying to do in the chapter is that, the whole book is about, instead of talking government to government, which they'll talk about later, it's more about people to people. And then in my chapter, we kind of talk about how often when we think about bilateral relations between Australia and Indonesia, it's always Australia on this side, Indonesia on that side. But there's a lot of people who don't fit into Australia or Indonesia, but are somewhere in between. Who don't, and they already speak the language, they understand the culture. So for example, children from mixed marriages or Indonesians who grew up in Australia or go to Australia, are born in Australia. Maybe they might be Australian citizens but are Indonesian at heart, or diasporas and diasporas, who kind of don't get included in these diplomatic relations, but they actually already have cultural capital that the government doesn't have to invest in. It's already there. You just kind of have to encourage them to use it. And so that's sort of what the chapter is about. And even in I got to talk about my other research, which is about third culture kids, children who grow up in other countries and come back. Sorry, I forgot to talk about it in Indonesia. Is that okay? Jadi saya lihat even at this festival, saya ketemu beberapa akademikus yang anaknya mungkin bisa di luar negeri, kayak anak Lily gitu, yang namanya seringkali dibilang third culture kid, itu lahir besarnya di berbagai macam tempat. Sebagai pilot juga ya, dulu misalnya di Indonesia setahun nanti di English, Western, whatever. We forget that you can't have this international without a local connection, without a national connection. And that's sort of as well what we're trying to talk about in the book, and hoping that things like this would encourage that sort of thing. Because saya lihat banyak juga orang Indonesia kadang kalau mengirim anaknya ke sekolah berbasis internasional atau ke misalnya anaknya di luar negeri, orang tuanya seringkali melupakan mengajarkan anaknya bahasa Indonesia gitu. Dan di sini mungkin nggak terlalu, tapi di Jakarta banyak anak orang Indonesia lahir di Indonesia, besar di Indonesia, nggak bisa bahasa Indonesia. Aneh kan? Mana internasionalnya gitu.
Can I just as the people you work with to do your research, do they want to be more involved with like government, or do they want to be more left alone, or do they sort of, I'm kind of interested in them.
Well, it depends on, like everyone's got different personality. Some of them do want to get involved, but sometimes don't know how. And you mentioned AYA, which is Australia Indonesia Youth Association. And that's a very good, and that's quite recent. It didn't exist when I was in university. But that kind of captures everybody who is interested in Indonesia, interested in Australia, rather than just Australians. Like there's no limit to your nationality or anything in a way, right? Whereas exchange programs, you have to be Australians who don't speak Indonesian in order to join the exchange program. But AYA kind of opens it up for people who already speak Indonesian. Australians to come, Australians who speak Indonesian to come. And what was your other question? Australian kids involved. That's been really helpful. Oh, the other one is, do they want to be in government? I think some do, but there's also people who just want to do business, right? And it doesn't have to be a government thing. They just want to do business between the two, using their languages, or many other things, like you want to be a writer,
Funded by Australian government, thank you, to create an archive of oral histories, which were whole of life. So we wanted to interview, scholarship awardees from the 1950s until now about their whole life, how their time in Australia influenced, impacted on their lives. What are some of the findings? Well, overwhelmingly the experiences are positive and life-changing. This is probably
2012 saya tuh bertemu dengan sutradara dan penulis dari Darwin di Ubud Writers and Readers Festival, dan ketika artis dan penulis dari Darwin ini namanya Kelly Lee Hickey, tahu saya dari Makassar, dia itu pertama kali yang dia sebut adalah orang Makassar. Orang Makassar itu datang di Australia, jadi selalu seperti itu berulang-ulang. Dan dalam kesempatan lain, kalau ketemu orang Australia lain yang kemudian saya memperkenalkan diri saya dari Makassar, pasti disebut lagi, iya dulu kan orang Makassar sampai ke Australia Utara kan ya membawa terima. Jadi selalu seperti itu disebutkan secara spontan. Sehingga waktu kami bertemu di Ubud, Kelly kemudian punya ide bagaimana kalau kita membuka lagi hubungan yang sudah lama ini, tapi dengan konteks yang lebih modern, lebih kontemporer. Makanya Kelly bersama satu orang sutradara lagi datang dari komunitas Yirkala di Northern Territory, datang ke Makassar melakukan residency. So they stay with us for 2 weeks and then work with local artists and one of the local theater here to relive the history and to create a new approach, a new play stage based on that history. So that's why we want to share the history in a more contemporary way, yeah? So can be shared with the young audience. As you say that as we see in Makassar International Artist Festival, we got lots of young audience. So we presented the collaboration in the opening night of the festival in 2017. And during the residency and the collaboration process, dozens of young people from Makassar actually joined the focus group discussion and the panel discussion, and they learn about the history. They know the word of Aborigine, but they don't know actually the story in more detail. The two arts, they have an opportunity to learn about the history in more detail. So I think this is one of the sample of people to people collaborations in art and literature.
Thank you. And I wonder how it's being received by audiences in Australia and Indonesia, and more broadly, how do you think Australian academics of Indonesian studies are perceived? So you're working at a university, and yeah. Jadi pertanyaan saya, hal yang penelitian Anda mungkin kadang-kadang bisa diangkat sebagai apa? Kontroversial. Jadi di mana itu dianggap oleh pembaca Australia dan Indonesia, dan menurut Anda gimana peneliti Australia yang mengenai Indonesia diangkat oleh audience? Pembaca?
Mungkin saya coba jelaskan sedikit. Saya sebenarnya agak untung karena saya juga orang Australia, jadi untuk menilai hubungan di antara Indonesia sama Australia, mungkin saya bisa lebih netral. Jadi pas tahun 2013 hubungan antara Indonesia sama Australia sebenarnya cukup panas karena pas waktu itu kepercayaan masalah HP presiden dan memang itu mungkin semacam hal biasa terjadi di mana-mana, tapi perbedaan yang ada di sini karena pernah ada permintaan maaf dari Australia sehingga tegang sekali dan hubungannya terlalu baik. Dan saya merasa banyak akademisi di Australia yang tertarik pada Indonesia ikut dalam proses untuk membantu dalam arti untuk memperbaiki hubungan itu, karena mereka yakin bahwa dalamnya bukan hanya di antara teman kita sama teman kita, tapi di antara manusia sama manusia atau pihak sama pihak, hubungannya sebenarnya kuat. Dan ya, saya memang tertarik terhadap itu juga. Pas waktu itu bukan masalah saraf yang menjadi masalah, ada lagi masalah perahu, dan itu adalah orang pengungsi yang melarikan diri dari Indonesia ke Australia. Itu menjadi satu hal yang cukup kontroversial. Ada lagi lain beberapa orang yang kena hukum karena masalah narkoba. Jadi ada cukup banyak masalah yang terjadi di antara dua negara itu, dan yang memang tugas dari akademisi mungkin harus pertama menjelaskan bagaimana mungkin itu bisa terjadi, tapi mungkin banyak juga harus membantu dalam memperbaiki atau menghilangkan masalah itu. So Indonesian-Australian relationships, they are often marked by a roller coaster up and downs, and I, in a way, I'm lucky because I'm not Australian, so for me to observe this relationship, I don't necessarily get entangled. I can take a more neutral stance than trying to comment on this, and we became, in a way, very much involved in this research project that we're going to talk about today. At a point when the Indonesian-Australian relationship was particularly bad, some of you might remember the spying affair when the mobile phone was tapped, and in a way it's nothing too unusual. It happens within other countries as well, but in a way there was a missing apology for here. So the spying affair other problems, the so-called boat people, the Bali night. So that all makes the relationship very intense at this point. And I guess for academics, it's part of their job to explain why these problems appear to begin with, but also to offer some sort of interpretation that might be of benefit when it comes to solving some of the problems. So, and I guess that was part of the motivation that drove us.
Salah satu bule namanya Shane yang punya surf resort di Sumatera Selatan. Nah, Shane dia orang Australia dan ada banyak desas-desus tentang Shane. Ada yang bilang dia melarang nelayan dari pantai karena sekarang pantai itu cuma buat turis. Ada yang bilang dia memotong jari tangan dari pelacur cantik. Dan ada yang bilang salah satu pagi dia mematikan listrik supaya masjid tidak bisa bersiaran sholat subuh. Nah, semua desas-desus ini didengar Penny, salah satu perempuan Australia yang baru dapat pekerjaan di surf resort Shane. Dan yang berikutnya ada cerita tentang konflik di antara dua kebudayaan mereka. Saya mau menulis buku ini karena saya sering lihat bule kayak Shane di Indonesia. Sebenarnya saya sudah main surfing di Sumatera, Jawa, Bali, Lombok, Sumbawa, seluruh Indonesia. Dan di setiap desa surfing ada orang jahat kayak Shane, biasanya orang Australia. Jadi buat saya berpikir ini cerita penting. Ini cerita penting karena itu penting orang bule punya cermin. Bisa lihat ini kebudayaan kita waktu di Indonesia. So in English, my book Choco is about a villain called Shane, who's an Australian expat. He runs a surf resort in South Sumatra and there's all sorts of rumours flying around about him. They say he bans the local fishermen from fishing at the beach because the beach is now for surfers. They say he cut the fingers of a beautiful boar from Bandar Lampung. And they say early one morning he slid on his belly to the local mosque and cut the electricity so the mosque couldn't broadcast the morning prayer. These are all the stories that Penny hears. Penny's an Australian chick, she's a surfer, she's young, and she's just got a job managing Shane's surf resort. So what follows is a tale of conflict between two very different cultures. And I guess I was inspired to write this book. Actually, it came about after a trip to Krui in South Sumatra, and I heard a story about a guy like Shane, except he was American, not Australian. And in this particular real-life story, the local people in this village locked him inside his guest house one night and set it on fire. They tried to burn him alive. So ini berarti in dunia nyata ada orang bule dari Amerika dan semua ada orang di masyarakat ini yang mau membunuhnya. Dan mereka mengunci dia di dalam surf resort dan membakar. Tapi polis datang dan tidak ada masalah. Actually sebenarnya sekarang dia tidak di Indonesia, dia sudah tidak boleh tinggal di sini lagi. So this is where the feeling for Choco came from.
Ya, sangat jujur dan bagus juga.
So the book came about, as most academic books do, after a conference where many papers were presented. But as Ansha just described to you, the reason that we gathered these academics together on this topic is because we were feeling very depressed and upset about the state of Australia's relationship with Indonesia. As people who, teach about Indonesia, study Indonesia, care about it a lot, care about the relationship between the two countries, we thought that we need to do something to speak about or to try to look for the substance that we know is there in the relationship that is apart from the government issues between the two governments. So that's why we did it. So it was a conference, and then the academics wrote their chapters for us, and we went looking for a publisher in Australia. You look for journals or this kind of thing, and there just appears to be no interest. At the
waiting to see a great math teacher. So there was an opportunity actually.
Jadi pada awalnya